It has been quite a while since I last talked about some of my favorite pattern designers. So today I wanted to tell you about why I love fuzzy mitten patterns. Hello, welcome to Show and Tell Meg. I'm Megan and I like to make things. And one of the things that I really like to make, sort of historically throughout my knitting, are toys. I will say I didn't start off knitting toys. I started crocheting toys, and that's going to be a video for a different day. But after a few years of crocheting toys, I decided to dip my toes into knitting toys, and then just the floodgates opened because knitting toys just felt a little bit more difficult. Like there were techniques that I hadn't learned. Crochet was just so fast. Eventually, I stumbled upon some patterns that I just couldn't not make. So this is one of the pattern designers that really got me into knitting toys, and I managed to knit her patterns pretty regularly. So this pattern company is called Fuzzy Mitten Designs. The pattern designer's name is Barbara Prime. She lives in Canada. And so sometimes you will see it under Fuzzy Mitten, sometimes you'll see it under Barbara Prime, but you can search for both and find them. I will put links to her website as well as her Ravelry page that has all of her designs on it. But in general, her designs tend to be very classic children's toys. So for example, look at this bunny. All of her designs are posable, or most of them. She gives you directions on how to make their legs posable so they can sit, they can stand. Their arms are posable as well. They also all are pretty consistent size. They're like 8 to 10 inches tall, and they all come with some type of clothing accessory patterns. So I first learned about Barbara Prime's patterns in 2014 because I saw people talking about they were going to be doing a mystery knit along for a knitted amigurumi. And I had dipped my toes into knitting amigurumi already before, so I was fairly okay as far as I thought I could handle the techniques and that kind of thing. And so when I heard there was a mystery knit along, I had to jump in. And I was incredibly pleased by what it turned out to be. The way that her mystery knit-alongs work is you purchase the pattern and then she gives you a listing that suggests different colors for the pattern that you're going to make because you don't know what you're making. And her animals tend to be close to what the real color would be because they're just a very classic kind of design. I did follow the color choices that she gave as an example, and I'm so glad that I did because it was a kangaroo. So this is the kangaroo and Joey pattern, and I just love it. It got so many thoughtful details. So she has the posable legs, different color for the bottom of the foot. She has a tail that does help her stay stable when she's standing on a table. And the Joey is a finger puppet. Like, oh my gosh, look at his little legs. And he has a full face, just like the mom. They match. I did have to get smaller craft eyes to make the Joey, but oh my gosh, it's just so cute. And he goes in her pouch. Like, it's just the cutest thing. Barbara Prime's animals do tend to be seamed. So there is a seam in the back of the mom, on the bottom of the tail, on the back of the legs. Like all the parts are knitted flat and then seamed. And so doing this, it was kind of a good opportunity to learn how to do that on a toy. I hadn't really seamed a lot of things up until this point, but she also has this really cute sweater, and the stripe design was part of the pattern. And I've got these teensy buttons, and I had quite the time hunting down tiny buttons back then. I mean, this was 10 years ago. I don't remember them being on Amazon or anything, or at least not to where I was going to order them there. But I found these at Hobby Lobby in the button section in just this miscellaneous thing. And I think they were actually designed for like scrapbooking, but they're kind of the perfect size for her animals. And so now I have this assortment of various colors for specifically Barbara Prime animals that I keep on hand. So this was the first one that I ever made. and I was incredibly thrilled with how it turned out. I named them Charlene and Jake because, you know, Charlene and Jake, very Australian sounding to me. After the success in the spring of 2014 with making the mystery knit along, I just was in love with her patterns in general. And I also got this really cool yarn from a thrift store that I wanted to try using. And I paired them together and it came out super cute. So this is her Silly Duck pattern. And this yarn is fuzzy. This is called Red Heart Value, and it is long discontinued, but getting this skein of it made me look into it more, and it turns out this is like, there's a cult following for this yarn because it's a thinner worsted kind of weight, and it's just lightly fuzzy. It's not crazy fuzzy, but there's a stitch design on the wing that actually makes it look kind of like feathers. You can't really see that because of my yarn that I use, but it's on the tail as well. And I named this duck Jeffrey, but he is entirely thrifted yarn. And I just think he's super adorable. And then after Jeffrey is when I made my rabbit. This is Barbara's Well-Dressed Bunny pattern. And I named him Hazel because I had recently read Watership Down and loved it. So of course you had to be Hazel Rabbit. And I ran into a little snag, not due to Barbara, but because I was working from stash and I didn't have a lot of finer weight yarns that I could use for the clothes. So his clothes are a little bulky, which makes his arms stand out. Also, I really wanted to use this particular color, but this is an extremely drapey yarn. So the pattern shows the bunny with his ears up, and mine is a lop-eared bunny, but I still think he's super cute. And I just love the kind of Peter Rabbit type vibes with the waistcoat and the jacket. The jacket has like a broken rib pattern, just very thoughtful details, just like all of her patterns. So he comes out every Easter as a decoration without fault. And usually the duck does as well because they're very springy and adorable. After I made those three in quick succession in 2014, I took a pause. I made a lot of other things, but then the 2015 Mystery Knit Along came along and I knew that I wanted to join it. And it turned out to be this super adorable turtle. This is her rainy day turtle pattern. And I did, again, follow her recommendations for color, which I'm very glad that I did. But just the details of this turtle. His shell is a jumper. Like, it's got the little buttons like it's overalls, and his shell can actually come off. The body is just like the rabbit, and he's the same height. It's just got that extra shell, which I think is the coolest detail. And I love the stripes. It's just so cute. And then he's got his little rain hat and his rain boots. Those can come off. Got a little tail. So this was just adorable. I was incredibly happy with how this one turned out as well. Just like ultra serotonin boosting for a mystery knit along. And then in 2015, Barbara Prime was like churning out the patterns. And she had another mystery knit along in the fall, which of course, again, I had to partake, right? So it was a red panda. And this one actually taught me a lot more techniques. So he's got a decent amount of color work on his face, color work on his tail. And this one, I just remember it having a lot of extra details, like his tummy's black and the rust color. I had to learn something about his outfit here. I can't quite remember, but like this is all separate. You can take off his little outfit, and the pants have a split in the butt for the tail to come through, which I think it's all just, again, so thoughtful. And when I was a kid, I would have loved having animals like these that you could dress up and play with your dolls, you know, like they're big enough and detailed enough that they feel more like dolls than just stuffed animals. So I just think they're a very classic design. Then I had to participate in 2016 as well, and this was the design. This is her wood elf pattern. And I really like him now, but I'll be completely honest, I was kind of bummed at the time simply because I loved her animal patterns. I was hoping it was going to be one of the cute animals, and then it turned out to be a human, which it's still a very cute human. Like, look at its ears and its little nose. It even has a belly button. I don't know if you can see that. You have like a double decrease that makes the belly button. Like, just such cute details. His legs are not posable like the others, but they're kind of floppy. So if you lean him against something, you can sit him down. And because I was kind of bummed, I didn't make him more than just shorts. I have always intended on making him more, but it just it just didn't happen. And then this past Christmas, I had planned on making him a Christmas elf, but I couldn't find him because he was in this bag to do this video. Anyway, since 2016, when she came out with this pattern, she later on came out with a pattern that was released in Knit Now magazine that is a Christmas elf that has like a striped tunic type shirt and a hat, and I think it might have had elf shoes. So I have always intended on making him into a Christmas elf. It just hasn't happened yet. So this is going to be the year that the poor guy won't be naked anymore. We're going to make him some clothes. But I love that you can do that. You know, he's cute like he is, but you can accessorize him further, and I could dress him up for all kinds of holidays. Like, why not? After that one, I did take a little bit of a break. Barbara didn't do her mystery knit alongs as regularly. She was doing other things, is all I can really equate it to. I don't know her. So, Barbara, if you watch this, let us know. But I remember it just being that she was working on other things. She was revamping a lot of her patterns, and she was releasing patterns in magazines and things like that. So, power to her. I just always enjoyed the mystery knit along. So, I always did those. But when I saw this next pattern, it was in 2020, and I just needed this level of joy in my life. I think we all did in that time. So in December of 2020, I knitted this platypus. So this is her platypus with skirt pattern. I named her Patty the Platty. And again, like, I've gotten much better at her animals at this point. Her legs are much stiffer, so she can legit stand up and not flop. Her patterns do give really detailed directions on how to make the legs posable. Essentially, you take a really long piece of yarn, thread it through the leg both sides, thread it through the body, thread it through the other leg, and then put it back through a couple of times, and then cinch it down. And so you get that little depression. And this is honestly exactly how they make posable teddy bears. It's a very traditional way of making animals. And I think that lends to giving them that classic kind of look, you know? All of the designs remind me of animals out of classic stories like Little Bear and Franklin for the turtle and Beatrix Potter animals. They're very elegant looking. And this platypus was no exception. She's a little more exotic than those animals would have been. But her dress is a little jumper. It's got a nice little texture. She's, again, got those little buttons. And I just made her a yarn headband. And I just think she's adorable. Like, how could I not knit this? The most recent thing that I made is actually something I've shared on here before. This is the Bumblebee. I named it Beulah. And I made this at the beginning of 2024. It's just so cute. I purchased Knit Now magazine at the beginning of last year just to make this. Barbara has a whole series of animals that look like buns, and it's just the cutest idea. The bee was just the first one that I really had to make. And he's got a little antenna, and look at his derpy face. Like, ugh, I love it. He's got little feet. And then the accessory is this bluebell flower that he sits in. And he has sat on my shelf in my sewing room, so I can see him every time I go in there. And I think it's just adorable. So if you need some very classic, elegant style animals for a child in your life, or even just yourself, I made these when I did not have children. Like, I like them just for me. But if I had had these as a kid, I would have absolutely loved them because they're dolls. Like, She has all kinds of clothing patterns that you can mix and match because the dolls are all the same body size for the most part. And so you can make a few animals, make a bunch of different clothes for them. And what an amazing gift that would be for a young kid or even an older kid, you know? Like they're just so classy. And for disclosure purposes, I just wanted to say Barbara Prime does not know me. She does not know that I'm making this video. I paid for all these patterns 100% with my own money. I just really like promoting pattern designers that I think go above and beyond and make amazing patterns. And her patterns are also extremely well priced. Like she gives things away, in my opinion, in comparison to what other people charge for their patterns. So I can 100% recommend that if you want to make some knitted amigurumi, look no further than Barbara Prime from Fuzzy Mitten Designs. And that's all I have for you today. So if you liked this, please do give me a thumbs up. If you are interested in hearing more designers that I enjoy or just my other projects that I get up to, please do stick around, subscribe to see more, and I hope to see you in the future. And until then, I hope that you can make some truly adorable stuffies.